Today's adolescents use technology, particularly the internet, more than people of any age group. And that is why it is fair to call them digital natives. Pretty much they were born with some sort of a device in their hands. The notable digital divide nowadays is not between people of different socioeconomic statuses or cultural backgrounds or racial backgrounds. It's mostly between age groups. Older generation is less likely to use the internet and technology in general than the next younger one. And uh, it's funny because when we had to move to the online platform, we began to see a major digital divide kind of present itself in how some of the instructors on campus were having such a hard time navigating the online platform and being able to conduct their classes online in comparison to the majority of students who were able to adapt to the move. And the only problem was just making sure that they actually have the equipment that they needed. So, definitely, today's adolescent is at an advantage when it comes to technology. Now, technology has its pros and cons, and it depends on which side of the argument are you. Technology is accepted and welcomed in every classroom, and it's a tool for learning. And as you can see, it was a lifesaver for us during the pandemic. Um, it also helps a lot of students who might feel socially isolated and have a way to connect with peers or other friends, even though it's through a format that is not face to face. Also, proponents of technology say that the dangers that we associate with exposure to technology do not really lie in the technology or the equipment itself. It's rather the person that's using them. So it's in the cognition of the user. And if we really want to protect teenagers, we really need to activate their analytical thinking about the consequences of things that they might engage in when they use that device or that technology. However, those who are opponents of technology do cite major research statistics and point out a lot of harm that comes from the excessive use of technology and the misuse of technology. And one in particular is the fact that those rapid shifts that are happening when people watch a particular video game or advertisement, there is a byproduct of that is affecting the attention span. As a matter of fact, as a society, we have gone down in our ability to maintain attention from 12 seconds to 8 seconds. And in addition to that, violent content that is increasingly becoming presented in those video games, shows are another major contributing factor to aggression in our society and violence in our society. And then finally, if the child is sitting for a prolonged period of time on their device, then chances are they are taking away time from active exercise, homework, and perhaps family engagement or chores. So all of this is coming at the expense of something else that is also important. And the final problem with that addiction is that adolescents, because of that lack of critical thinking or analytical thinking about certain consequences to their actions, because of the impulsivity that is a byproduct of the restructuring of the brain and the limbic system development ahead of the prefrontal cortex, they might be engaging in things such as a share of personal information or personal pictures that they will later on regret and becomes really hard to retrieve or stop. Which brings us to the problem that many teenagers unfortunately face, and that is sexting. In one statistic, as many as 30% of adolescents reported that they have actually received a sexting photo. Now, there are two main dangers that are anticipated because of that. The first one is that the picture was something that was forwarded without the acknowledgement or the consent of the person. So that person's picture is now on a platform that is going to be hard to retrieve or stop. The second is, remember we talked about the imaginary audience, and it's very important for the egocentric adolescent to gain acceptance and feel wanted. So if the sender had actually deliberately sent that picture of themselves, they are risking the chance that they might not be getting the results or the reaction they anticipated, and sometimes that causes them to feel serious depression and maybe major developmental or psychological consequences. Another byproduct of technology is the last type of bullying that we talked about in middle childhood, which kind of starts to become more prevalent during the adolescent years. Cyberbullying is particularly prevalent during the ages of 11 to 14. And if you guys remember, we said that the key word in the definition of bullying is the repeated occurrence. Now, with cyberbullying, that repeated is not needed, because once the picture or once the post has been made public, there is no retrieval, there is no stopping it. So therefore, when we define cyberbullying, we're talking about when someone spreads rumors about another person using social media, posts or emails or texts or cell phones, and therefore it becomes pretty much public knowledge. There is no way of stopping that bullying, especially if that message was something false or not true. Results of cyberbullying can be devastating to the person, and we have seen the results of it, unfortunately, on headlines, news reporting, victims committing suicide because they couldn't take it anymore.